It's time for an extra special edition of Entertainment Zone as everybody's favourite mutants are back in X-Men First Class. Hi everyone, I'm Ben Almaden and welcome to Entertainment Zone. I'm here today for my opening day review of X-Men First Class. It is the 5th X-Men film and it is by Matthew Vaughn. He's directing the film. He was originally attached to direct the 3rd X-Men film but eventually pulled out and it went over to Brett Ratner, but Vaughn is back now. You know, he's also directed Kick-Ass, so he's experienced in the genre, and he's taken over the reins for the X-Men franchise, and what a job he has done. It's an amazing film. Let me start off by saying that it really is. So I'm going to keep it spoiler free until the end. I will give you a warning when the spoilers are coming up. So let's start things off. Now, the film is a prequel. It's set before all of the previous films, before X-Men 1 to 3 and even before Wolverine. And it starts very similarly to the original, with a young Magneto breaking out of the Nazi concentration camp. But unlike X-Men 1, we saw what happened immediately after this, where we are introduced to Kevin Bacon's Sebastian Shaw. And let me just say that Kevin Bacon was perhaps one of my favourite actors in the movie. He did a really good job. Kevin Bacon's character, Sebastian Shaw, as I said, he's the leader of the Hellfire Club, and he's the main villain in the movie. Then after this, we also see Charles Xavier in his youth bumping into Mystique, and then we go forward to the 1960s, and the story progresses from there, and it's about Magneto and Professor X meeting each other, and then recruiting other mutants, discovering mutant kind and bringing them together, whilst stopping the looming presence of a nuclear war which could be started by the Cuban Missile strikes. So it all fits very neatly together, and it's a really tight plot. It will keep you going, and it's paced brilliantly. It's really paced brilliantly. There was no scenes whatsoever where I was like, oh come on. It was done really well. Was it faithful to the comic books? Not entirely, but the X-Men films never really have been. So I think we've come to expect that, you know. There is variations from the comic books, but the variations they have made, it works well for the cinematic X-Men universe. And continuity-wise, the only continuity issues I had was the fact that Emma Frost was in this movie, despite having a character we were led to believe was Emma Frost in Wolverine. But hey, she was never actually called Emma Frost on screen in Wolverine, only in the special features and end credits, I believe. And also that we have Alex Summers in this movie, and no mention of Cyclops, Scott Summers, whatsoever. But hey, I've got no issue with that either, because to be quite frank, Cyclops isn't one of my favourite characters. So talking of characters, let's move on to the cast of this wonderful movie. For me, as I said, one of the best actors in the film had to be Kevin Bacon as bad guy Sebastian Shaw. He does an excellent job. He's got an amazing screen presence, and he's just suited perfectly for the role, and he's genuinely evil, and he just plays it so well. Also great is Michael Fassbender as Magneto, Eric Lenscher, and James McAvoy as Professor X, Professor Charles Xavier. Fassbender was brilliant. He was just perfect as Magneto. Straight away I knew he'd be right for the role as soon as I found out about his casting. And you can imagine his Magneto going on to become Ian McKellen's. It was brilliant. I will admit I had doubts about McAvoy, but he was very good. And what's also exciting about this film with Professor Xavier, you know, for the previous films he's been limited to a bald, wheelchair psychic. He doesn't do much, but he's caught up in the action in this. You know, he's using his legs, and he's not bald, and you know, he's a lot younger, so you know he's a bit of a flirt, and he's more active, and he has a better presence than he did in the original X-Men trilogy. And McAvoy was great in the role, and again you can see his character becoming the Patrick Stewart character. So sublime casting for those roles. Nicholas Hoult was also excellent as a young Beast. Beast's one of my favourite characters, and Hoult, again, whilst he is a good actor, I just wasn't sure whether or not he'd be right for the role, but he pulled it off brilliantly. And again, can imagine him becoming Kelsey Grammer. Jennifer Lawrence was also cool as Mystique. At first I thought, oh, you know, will she do as good a job as Rebecca Romijn? But she really stepped up to the role. So she was cool. Oliver Platt, there was all sorts of rumours who's Oliver Platt going to be in this movie. To be honest, his role wasn't that important whatsoever. He works for the CIA. That's all you really need to know. But he was cool. He was cool. The kid who played Banshee as well, I thought was pretty cool. He was quite funny. I forget his name, but he did a great job. And just in general, the whole cast were well suited for the parts. There was no miscasting whatsoever, and there was no weak characters either. And you know, it was just brilliant. We've got characters we haven't seen before, you know, like Banshee and Azazel, or Azazel, sorry. And they were just brought to life wonderfully on screen, and the cast all gelled well together as well. You could believe them as a team. And you know, when I found out the roster of the X-Men was like Banshee, okay, Beast, yeah, good, Darwin, right, Havoc, oh dear. But actually, the team worked very well, and I really liked the personification of the characters in the film. I also want to give a quick mention to January Jones, playing Emma Frost. Emma's one of my favourite comic book characters, and she played the role really well. However, I didn't feel Emma got enough screen time in the movie. But I'll come back to Emma, I think, in the spoilers section. Visually, Matthew Vaughn's done a great job. It looked great. It was a visual treat on the eyes. The original X-Men were quite kind of dark, but this is more brightly coloured, and it did feel a lot more like a comic book movie, but it was still grounded in reality. It wasn't as big and over the top as comic books can be at times. The special effects were amazing. You know, like the missiles and Azazel's teleporting. It's just another step up from Nightcrawler in X2. The effects were phenomenal. So visually, I couldn't be more pleased. And the film was in 2D. It wasn't in 3D. There were times when I thought, wow, that'd look good in 3D. But I'm glad that the film could stand on its own feet without 3D. It's a good film. The story is paced well. It's not convoluted. It's a great plot, and we're seeing character arcs that we've been dying to see. You know, Professor X and Magneto meeting, them forging their friendship, and it's slowly tearing apart too. And you know, we get to see characters fleshed out more, like Mystique. They've made me love her character even more in this film, because she undergoes a lot of character progression, as do a lot of the characters in this film. So yeah, the characters were great, the casting were great, visually it was great. And I actually think this may be my new favourite X-Men movie. So yeah, I'm torn between giving it 4 out of 5 and 5 out of 5, but I'll probably go with full 5 stars. It was done perfectly. It was the story that should have been told a very long time ago. Even though I love the X-Men trilogy, I don't like the Wolverine movie, I'll admit that. But I can't wait for the Wolverine. That's going to be brilliant. But the story was done just superbly. I can tell you though, there's no Stan Lee cameo in this, or none that I spotted anyway. I don't believe he's in the movie. And there is no post-credit scene. However, there are 2 cameos in this movie, but I'll reveal that in the spoilers section shortly. But the audience today was the opening day, and the audience was actually pretty packed. For a Wednesday, the audience was really full. And both of these cameos were great, but one especially just got a but again, I'll mention them in the spoilers. So on the whole, a perfect X-Men movie, X-Men as it should be done. It does set up a sequel as well, which I am dying for. I'm just like, oh. And you know, for a 2-hour movie, I think it's just over 2 hours, I actually thought, oh, don't end. I actually was like, oh, I just want this to go on forever. It was just like amazing. X-Men is one of my favourite comic books of all time. It probably is my favourite. I really love X-Men. And this is how it should be done. Yes, they didn't use the original First Class of Beast, Jean, Cyclops, Angel, Iceman, but they are trying to keep within the continuity of the original X-Men films, and the way they've done it was actually pretty impressive. So I couldn't have asked for more. Even though I actually do like X-Men 3, I know a lot of people don't. I like what Brett Ratner did with it personally. I can't help but wonder now what it would have been like under Matthew Vaughn. But hey, he did a brilliant job on this movie, and I really hope he'll be returning to direct its sequel. So yes, I've got to give it 5 out of 5. It was amazing. Okay, so I'm going to discuss some spoilers now. So if you haven't seen X-Men First Class and you don't want to be spoiled, then stop watching now. Okay, so if you're still watching, then that means you've either seen X-Men First Class and you're now happy to listen to these spoilers, or you just want to be spoiled. Okay, if that's your choice, you've been warned. Okay, so the first spoiler I want to mention is the cameos. The first one I'll mention to you was Rebecca Romijn. We have a scene where Mystique is talking to Magneto, because in the film Mystique is... she breaks into Xavier's in the beginning when they're young children, and she ended up staying there. And, you know, she's kind of seen Charles now as like a surrogate brother, and they've grown up together, but over the course of the film, she's more attracted to Magneto, and I think she sees him more as a salvation, and shares beliefs with him as well. And he accepts her for who she is, you know, being Blue Mystique, and he helps to liberate her somewhat. And there's one scene where they're talking in the bedroom, and he's saying he prefers her as the proper Raven Darkholme, her name. And so she changes from Jennifer Lawrence into Rebecca Romijn, and then he says, "Oh, you know, no, I want the real Raven," and then she turns into Mystique. But I just thought, hey, it was great that Rebecca came back and did that. And the second cameo, I think it actually came first chronologically, was Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Now, I'd read in Empire magazine last month's issue, for those of you who have that in the UK, they were on about X-Men First Class. It might have even been the issue before that 2 months ago, and it was talking about X-Men First Class, and they'd said they'd gone to do an interview in the editing room, and they had to quickly turn the screen off because they were editing a big cameo, but they didn't mention who it was. And I was trying to think, oh, who will it be? And I thought, well, it's probably either going to be, you know, someone like Hugh Jackman or I don't know, Ryan Reynolds, or maybe somehow Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen, I don't know. And then at first I thought, well, do I want Hugh Jackman back? A part of me is like, yeah, it's cool, but I'd like this film to stand on its own feet without him. But it was Hugh Jackman, he was back, and I have to admit, once he came on, I was just like, alright, yeah, that is pretty cool, and I'm glad he's in it. And it was only for a few scenes, and the movie does stand on its own. It's an X-Men film, and it stood on its own without Wolverine, and I think that's what Fox's biggest fear has been, but they've proven they can do it. But his little addition just was great, and the whole audience was like, oh, Wolverine, oh, Logan, oh, Hugh Jackman. And it was great, you know. He had a really funny one-liner, and he was great. So I couldn't have asked for better. And you know, I've actually just remembered there's a third cameo as well. Look out for a very young version of Storm. She appears when Xavier first uses Cerebro. We even get the origin of Cerebro in the movie. And when we see all the people, one of them is Storm. So be sure to look out for her. Now, I also said I wanted to talk a bit more about Emma Frost. I did feel, whilst January Jones was great in the role, I did feel the character was horribly underused. She was made to be a bit of a lackey to Shaw, and whilst, yes, she kind of was in the Hellfire Club, her character is so much more, and there's a lot more depth to it, and I thought, oh, this could be a bit wasted. And then, you know, Magneto and Charles deal with her halfway through the film, and she's not to be seen again, and I thought, oh, is that it? Is that it with Emma? But luckily, you know, this film sets up a sequel, and we have Magneto at the end in full costume with his first Brotherhood Mystique, Azazel, Angel Salvador, and some whirlwind guy, I forget his name, and this is coming from an X-Men fan. And they break in and save Emma Frost. So it looks like Emma's going to have a bigger presence in the First Class sequel, which I'm over the moon about, because as I said, Emma's one of my favourite characters, and I did feel she was kind of underused in this. Though, you know, Kevin Bacon was the big bad villain in it, and he was brilliant. He was brilliant, sublime casting, really, really great. And then also at the end we had the legs, the paralysis of Charles Xavier, done brilliantly. I think in the comic it was someone like Unis the Untouchable or Eric the Red who broke Charles's legs. So obviously they weren't going to go down that route in the films, but having it be Magneto and having it be a mistake as well, it was just even more heart-wrenching to watch it happen. But it was great, you know. At the end of the film, it just, you know, we had the two sides, Professor X and Moira, setting up the X-Men, but sadly him wiping Moira's mind. What? And then Magneto and Mystique with their Brotherhood. It was just brilliant, and it's really, as I said, I really just didn't want the movie to come to an end, and it sets up a sequel wonderfully, and I'm very excited about it. We've got the Wolverine to come next. Sadly though, no Darren Aronofsky directing. Bad times. I'm very annoyed he quit. So that will pass the time, as will Avengers and Captain America and Dark Knight Rises. But boy, I can't wait for First Class 2 or whatever it'll be called. Bring it on. I also want to mention quickly as well that the Beast transformation was handled really well in this movie. That was pretty cool. So that's about it really. That's my thoughts on X-Men First Class. On the whole, I loved it. Brilliant. I had my fears about this movie, I really did, because of the lineup, because of the prior movie, X-Men Origins Wolverine. But, you know, this was a pretty good X-Men film, and I think it may just have become my favourite. And you know, I can't wait to see it again. I don't know when I'll see it again, but hopefully it will be soon. So let me know what you thought of X-Men First Class in the comments. If you've got any questions about the movie, feel free to again ask in the comments or inbox me, whatever. I want to hear your thoughts on the movie. What did you think of it? What did you think of the lineup? What did you think of the cast? Anything, your thoughts on X-Men First Class, let me know. And as soon as I hear anything about a sequel to it as well, I'll be keeping you guys updated, because I can't wait for a sequel. So take care, guys, and speak to you soon. And don't forget to subscribe. Bye.